For 40 years, I've walked the line between worlds and am well versed in death. But I want to have faith in humans. Give me something to believe in. Earth below me, sky above me, fire within me. Brought to you by UPR Network. I'm Trish Mo, and this is The Missing Piece. Good evening, everyone. I am your host, Trish, and this is The Missing Piece. It is Monday, February 13th, my favorite number, my favorite day. And we are broadcasting live out of New Orleans, 105.3 FM and United Public Radio Network. We are also on Roku now, not live, of course. That is the archives, as well as any of your favorite podcast stations, or almost all of them, actually. There's so many. So tonight, first off, before I forget again, I do want to thank Carnation for sponsoring my show as well as the network. And I'm excited for my guest slash friend co-host. We kind of into a lot of things, but we haven't had a chance to get together on my show. Emily Menshouse. She is the current host of What the Frick Live, which has been on UPRN for how long now?
Not very long at all. I think since mid-January, so just a month. I think that's it. But we've been around for 5 years or so. I mean, I took a year off, but 4 years is probably reasonable to say.
And we've co-hosted together on Fridays a few times. I've been a guest on News on the Flip Side, and that's a lot of fun with Joe Montaldo and Jay, of course, from Church of Mavis, and they're all hilarious. They're all regulars on there, but I just pop in once in a while. So. Because I don't do my listeners know I don't do a lot of the political. I just don't. I don't pay attention.
When you hear Elon Musk on that show, you hop in to calm Joe and me down.
Yeah. Let me. I don't know which one that. I always forget the chat room. If you're commenting and joining us from Facebook specifically in the chat room, make sure you give StreamYard permission to post your username. Otherwise, we just see you as Facebook user. So they've only been doing that for a few months, and it's terribly annoying.
Something with their contract went bad or something with StreamYard. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So it's weird. You have to give permission.
Oh my goodness. Most importantly, what am I thinking? Oh, well, two things most importantly. We were just talking about the Chiefs. Congratulations to the Chiefs winning Super Bowl number 57 yesterday with a final score of 38-5. If you didn't see it, it was a really exciting game. They were tied 35-35 till the last 11 seconds of the game. Harrison Butker,
I think
he kicked the final field goal, scoring 3 points, and they only had a few seconds on the clock, so it was a 27-yard field goal. Super impressive, but they're also AFC West champions, of course. And StreamYard has been weird for yes, it has. It's been very glitchy. But yeah, so that was exciting. While that was going on, however, I'm sure you caught this too, Emily, when I woke up this morning. People sending me messages from all across the world, actually. People sending me news clips and stuff because, of course, they know that I live under a rock and don't watch the news. And I see, what did I say the other day, too? aside from Emily predicting Super Bowl winner for the last 16 years, you
Mm-hmm.
said
And I
straight?
think I even said it Friday. It's going to
You
come down
did.
to the wire. It's
Yep.
going to be a last minute play to win. And I think I did say that Friday. But yeah,
Well, and
16 years.
interesting, when in the first half, it was right before halftime when Mahomes was injured.
Mm-hmm.
He had an ankle injury, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, that's what are we gonna do for that's happened before when he got the concussion and everything a few years ago." Um, and and interestingly enough, somebody today at my work asked me, they're like, "Do you think what if he did that on purpose? Like had that reaction on purpose to make the other team think, like to hype them up, during halftime, make them think that they just took out the quarterback."
Yeah.
Actually, I'm like, I don't know. It
I
could
don't
have gone
know.
either way, He could have like
I'm waiting on all kinds of conspiracies. Halftime show was terrible. Oh my
I didn't even
gosh. I
watch
did
the
not.
halftime show.
Oh,
But that
it was
made me
awful.
think about like making, the other team think that he was injured and then he comes back like like nothing happened. Um but then after I woke up this morning with all those news reports of all of a sudden there's like the something shot down over Alaska and Canada, and what's the US, the US government has all of these press conferences, which I've worked all day, so I haven't even looked into any of it really. But I was like, that's perfect because here's other countries like it, or even extraterrestrials, if they wanted to, um the all of the US pretty much is in the middle of a huge distraction of the Super Bowl. Like we're not paying
Well,
attention.
UFO doesn't necessarily mean alien. It could be military UFO,
Oh, right.
drones, missile,
But I'm saying
I
if
think it's
you're another
China.
country or something and the
Hmm.
best day you're like, what's a day where nobody's going to pay attention to well, I mean, people would pay attention, but for the most part, media, journalism, everything is focused on Super Bowl.
Hmm.
And
I mean,
so, of
it would be a
course,
good day to do that, definitely. Most
mhm.
definitely. I mean, but, we're going to see a lot more of this,
Oh, definitely.
unfortunately.
I
Crazy times. My water is going to possibly be turned off, affected by the derailment up in Ohio because the chemicals are in the water now and in the soil, and it got into the Ohio River and Mississippi, and it's going to go all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. It's killing animals, all the fish, all that stuff.
So I have talked about that before, and it actually starts in Kansas. Um, I don't know who you all are. It just says Facebook user for all of you. Hello.
I think they can go
But
to streamyard.com/Facebook to get permission.
or you can join the
Think.
chat as well on my YouTube page if you would like. Um, because it doesn't require permission. but, but so Kansas is one of the largest rivers, and I've talked about this with various projects that have been now with the CIA. Um, and Kansas is one of the largest rivers in the U.S. The Kansas River goes into, obviously, crosses over onto the Missouri side. That eventually connects to the Mississippi River and down to the Gulf as well. And for years now, that all the pesticides, the chemtrails, everything they've been using in the for the crops, because we have so many or a great deal of the farmland here for agriculture.
Right.
Um, and now, just recently, they've been testing a lot of the wheat and the grains and everything. Obviously, are affected by that. The insects, the pollinators, everything. And it's so the same thing is happening here. I've said that forever. I'm like, there are so many kids. When I first moved back here, and my daughter was in kindergarten, this was years ago, but there were so many kids with deformities like from birth, cleft palates, cleft lips, things like that, that are usually chemically or caused by chemicals in utero, that their mom was exposed to. Um, and so it's the same thing with the water and stuff here. And I'm wondering, like, it's going to be everywhere though. Like it's
Oh yeah, it's going to end
absolutely.
up being everywhere. That's a good place. I think this was done on purpose. I think it was a targeted attack. It was not an accident. The news is not going to tell people because they don't want us all to panic. You're not going to find that. So you're going to find distractions, and you're going to hear a lot of like UFO entity stuff like that repetitively because that's part of the mind control thing, and it
Oh,
makes
right.
people think that it's something else, you know, alienistic or ET rather than what it really is. So even the head of military is probably will be saying that stuff. Even didn't Joe Biden do a speech on that? I think he did a speech or something and said it was ET or I don't know. I don't know. I hadn't looked that up
Oh,
yet.
yes, last night, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a
Was
bunch
it
of
Joe
them that they
Biden?
actually, there were numerous military officials that actually they quoted saying UFOs, extraterrestrial things, like they
Yeah.
use that type of terminology. But
There.
what I was referring to with when going back to like the water, these declassified, I had this on my show a few months ago. These declassified projects I found from the 70s and 80s specifically listed Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, where they had experimented with different. I'll have to go back to and pull that up on their on the
Mhm.
archives of their website for that specific project because um, the different chemicals that they sprayed, the different in water, in the air, on the ground, different ways that it was done. But what was interesting about that, they had contracted these things, the US government had contracted these things to be done with Russia. So, like Topeka, where I'm from, had contracts for radiation experiments with them in the 70s and 80s. Now, what these declassified projects stated was that there were still a few of these contracts that they were still allowed to carry out in the future that had not been completed. And that meant, and this was when they wrote that statement, this was like late 90s, early 2000s, maybe. Um, those last few contracts that could be carried out over the states of Nebraska, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Kansas, that meant in the future they were still allowed to do whatever it was, that they had not fulfilled in previous contracts.
Is that then those are still with Russia too?
Yes.
So here's
Yep.
what when I think of Kansas, I think of how all those cows died and they kept saying it was a heat wave in Kansas. That was last
Hmm.
summer. And so I started going down that rabbit hole, and they had been injecting the cows with the COVID vaccine. And that specific area herd died. So I don't know if it was an experimental COVID vaccine. They added something else to it or not, but they are still continuing to inject um, animals, chickens and cows with that. And if you notice, um, if you go to the store and you get milk and cheese and all that stuff, the expiration date, it feels like my milk expires before the expiration date. My cheese has done the same thing. There was something else I bought. It's like, man, this is weird. Why is this molding and stuff so soon? Bread was
Well,
another one.
um, it was last summer, I believe, that I started. So it's interesting you say that. I've never heard that, but it was last summer that psychically, and I kept having dreams over and over and over about the meat being poisoned,
Mm-hmm.
and to even back then, I mean, this was like 2 years ago. I started getting all these messages intuitively to start canning meat, if I was going to continue or freeze it, well, but even freezing wouldn't last as long. Um, and I didn't really know why. But that was for a long time. I mean, for like 6 months, I was afraid to eat meat from anywhere unless it was somebody I knew, specifically
Mhm.
here that raised cattle, um, because of that. But another, there's, I can't even explain the amount of things that go on in Kansas that I feel like because the towns are a lot of them are very far apart and not very populated. And those people haven't, a lot of these small towns are, you would think back in the, 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
60s era, because they have generation upon generation. They don't get out much. They don't go to other states. They don't travel. They don't. So certain things that happen, whether it be government related or cryptid or, UFO or whatever, it's just normal to and who would they tell anyways? You know what I mean? But it's crazy that you see all of these different, Supernatural was filmed and based in parts of Kansas. Lewis and Clark,
Was
Superman,
Signs out? Was Signs Field of Dreams? Was that out there?
I believe part of Signs. You mean the M. Night Shyamalan
The
version?
Signs movie with was it Mel Gibson in it?
Yeah,
Signs.
that was M. Night
Okay,
Shyamalan's movie.
that terrified me. That was one of the scary movies.
Well, and so, but I think that one's supposed to be kind of based in Kansas. Um, Spongy bovine disease. Oh, hey Tanner. Yes, I see your name.
See what spongy
Up
bovine
a few. Yeah,
disease.
I don't know what spongy bovine disease is, but so last week I talked about how Kansas correlated with the Batman Begins movie and why. Because a few months ago, um,
It's mad cow disease. Spongy.
oh, the same thing is,
Yeah,
and that's one that affects your brain, right?
I think
Or their
so.
brain.
I think so.
That disease specifically, I researched that years ago because it has a lot of similarities to Lyme disease, which I have gotten active Lyme disease multiple times in my life. I mean, and here's the thing with Kansas, because I've lived in other states, I've lived in other countries, and the only time I start getting sick, um, to that degree, anytime, is when I've lived in Kansas.
Really,
So
that's
the and
interesting.
the second time I got Lyme disease, I lived about a mile from the Bionuclear Defense Center in Manhattan, Kansas, which was originally on Plum Island. And the scientists, after Plum Island closed, stated that many of them stated that nothing like that should ever be near any type of civilization. And so, of course, they move it to the geographical center of the United States, and literally the agriculture, capital here in the U.S. So, um,
That makes
that was
me
very close to me.
question the desert area in Stranger Things, because Stranger Things, that series all puts all of this MK Ultra stuff together. Was the desert scene in Kansas
See, so it's funny
area?
you talk about Stranger Things, because after all these UFOs being spotted in, over my city in the last few weeks, um, everybody's like, Trish, you're like 11 from Stranger Things. I was like, oh my God.
There's a real 11. I interviewed her.
Well, but they were saying that
You could be.
they're like,
You could be one of
you
them.
sound like the girl from Stranger Things, because when I was born in Roswell and I grew up in the mountains and stuff in New Mexico, but then I don't remember, like, there's a whole part of my life missing. um and so people are always like, how do you not know that these movies happened, or that these things came out, or whatever, over the last, I don't know, I'm 41 now, so it would have been um about 20 years ago back. Like there's stuff that I don't know about the world. And and I was like, oh, I don't know. And the fact that, with my when I can manipulate electricity and things like that. And you see, my light flickered when I said that because it it does.
Well, you
But
need to talk to Penny L.A. Shepherd. Okay, I've interviewed her. She's been on my show 3 or 4 times. She's on the Dark Outpost. She helps co-host that show with David. I can't remember his last name. Really good show. But she is the real 11. Like, you need to hear her backstory and everything. And she helps people with repressed memory or can't remember things. So you need to talk with her. I will send you her information
well,
after the
and that's
show.
the thing, with I've been there's so many times that I've been part of government experiments and um even abductions, things like that, for multiple reasons, for remote viewing or whatever. And so it was funny that I had a guest on last year, um, and I had taken a picture at this place I worked at one time with a Stranger Things shirt on. I've never seen Stranger Things actually. Um, but I had this shirt on that said that. And the only picture I had ever taken at that place, and I had been there a lot for bands and stuff. But anyways, I had him as a musician on my show months later, and I was like, the crazy thing is that same day I had ran into him the next time he was in town here. He had mentioned his brother was an actor on Stranger Things, and I'm like,
Ooh,
wait,
interesting.
did I just like I'm like, how is it that the last time I saw you play here, I was
Synchronicity.
wearing a Stranger Things shirt? So anyways, it was interesting. But that's Marvel or yeah, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, excuse me, how you
Oh,
pronounce it.
Captain Marvel?
The end of that one, it shows he's holding the glass he's holding has a sunflower on it and they reference Kansas. Like, see, so that's another one. Carnival of Souls, back in the day. There's tons that have been made here.
Wow.
Mad
Trish.
Cow.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trish. You froze out. So I was getting ready to just go on and just talk about something. I didn't hear you at all.
Mad Cow destroys the brain and spinal cord in humans. Yeah. See, and that's what Lyme disease does, essentially. I mean, Lyme disease causes or spinal
Yep.
meningitis, basically, or encephalitis, and and then it spreads to your heart as well. So,
MS too
hmm
destroys the brain and the spinal cord.
which is funny to me that MS is recognized because there's no like actual like test that you can there's not like a test for it. They just go by the symptoms. But Lyme disease isn't recognized, and there is a test for that. Like I can
Well,
test positive for MS, but they'll say no, we can't treat that. Or no, I can test positive for Lyme, sorry, and they can say no, we can't treat that. But there's not a test for the same symptoms with MS, and
there
anybody
is a
can treat that.
test. It's MRI. You have to have an MRI if you have the symptoms and they carry out long enough. My
Right.
ex-husband
But
has secondary progressive MS. It's the worst MS that you could possibly get. And he was having a lot of dizziness, like where he couldn't even walk and stuff. And
yeah.
they gave him medicine for vertigo for like 2 or 3 weeks, but he declined so fast, so quickly that they got him in. We've been dealing with this now for 3.5 years. And unfortunately, I think possibly he might end up being in a wheelchair by this time next year. And he's like super young and everything. But
Yeah.
um, he ended up he has to go to a specialist in Lexington, Kentucky, which is 2 hours away. He does have a doctor that helps him here with just regular blood work routine, but they check his blood work. He has regular MRIs every 6 months, his whole spine, everything.
But see, so I'm saying they don't have like there's not like a blood test because if anybody thinks or you have it on your record that you have Lyme disease, they flag it and nobody will treat you for anything. Like it's insane. I thought I was going
Mhm.
crazy when and people from other countries think that's crazy because
They do that
Lyme
with sickle
disease.
cell people too. Sickle cell.
And I mean, if I went to the doctor because, or if I went showed up at the hospital because I had a heart attack, they would have treated me for a heart attack. But if I said I have Lyme disease and then I had a heart attack, they probably would have like shut the doors on because there were doctors here getting their license taken away for treating patients with Lyme disease. So, um, so
Or if
eventually I had
you're having pain, like if you're having pain and you have
Mhm.
sickle cell or Lyme disease or these autoimmune disorders, it's like they ignore you. There was a girl that just died that was sickle cell. I can't remember her name, but she videotaped begging at the hospital for
Mhm.
medicine and
Yeah.
they weren't giving her. They even called the police to escort her out and she passed away 2 days later from those symptoms. It's crazy.
I passed out. I had waited one time. Well, actually, that wasn't the same. It wasn't for Lyme disease, and I actually ended up with an organ missing. So I assume that was planned. But in New York, I waited over 8 hours in the waiting room at an ER, and I kept telling them, I'm like, man, it's getting where at first I just had severe abdominal pain. They told me my appendix probably ruptured or something, but they did,
Hmm.
CAT scans, ultrasounds, everything, and they said, I don't know, you're fine. We can't find anything. And so the nurses kept, I mean, were really mean too. And finally, at the end of the day, I was like, I can't. I'm having a hard time breathing and they uh, they said, "Well, nothing's wrong with you. We have to release you now." And I wasn't even in a room or anything. I mean, I was still in the waiting room. I
Wow.
got up to leave and I passed out in their doorway. And when I came to, the doctor, they had to call in a specialist from the city to a surgeon, and he said, "You had about an hour left to live. Your entire diaphragm was filled with blood. You were bleeding internally." And and they're
Holy
just
smokes.
yeah, they're
Where
just
did
doing
that
it
come
because
from? Did you get in?
well, that's the thing. And then I woke up from surgery and they said, we also, your ovaries gone missing. So aside from I don't know where it
Where's
went,
where's Trisha's ovary? It's like where's Waldo? We
right?
gotta find her ovary. Where? How does that just go missing?
Well, and then there's no records of it now. So,
So
anyways,
you had surgery, right?
yes.
So in those CAT scans and stuff that they did, your both ovaries were there
I don't know.
in those
I
CAT
can't
scans.
see any.
Oh, okay.
I can't see any of the
They won't
records.
give you your
So
records.
they said they don't exist now.
That's super freaking weird. That is
Story of my life.
weird.
Story of my life. Um. Yeah. So these things. When it comes to autoimmune diseases and things like that, it got to where my doctors eventually said, "There's nothing we can do for you, Trisha. There's no cure for Lyme. There's you know, you either make it or you don't." And at that point, I didn't want to be on a pick line of permanent antibiotics for the rest of my life. I didn't want to because anything they did made me worse.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I stopped going to the doctor whatsoever. Like I don't recommend this people. Like don't. But if someone tells you you're going to die anyways, I was to the point where I had forgotten how to eat. I had forgotten how to talk most of the time. I didn't couldn't remember where I lived if I left my house. I didn't know my address. I didn't like parts of my life gradually all of a sudden I was having mini strokes. I was like I would lose feeling in arms or legs or while I was walking. I fell down the stairs because I lost feeling in my leg while I was walking. And so because it's also it affects your nerves obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um and So after they told me that, I was like, well, then why am I going to, I had 6 specialists at the time. I was like, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life. If you tell me I have less than 1% chance to live, then I'm not going to spend it in doctor's offices. And that's why I started doing art again. I started studying nutrition. I got my personal training license, and I went back about 6 months later, and they scanned my head, which had, I mean, was almost filled with white lesions on my brain, and it had
Wow.
also spread to my heart when I've had 2 heart attacks, and they're like, they said, we don't know what you're doing, but your brain cells are healing themselves,
Awesome.
so so
Well, at
there's a
least
lot
something
of
good came
things,
out of that. I mean,
but it doesn't make sense to me. And so now they've correlated Lyme and MS, and everything, but it doesn't make sense to me why they don't do other methods. Why don't doctors tell people with MS about red light therapy, about sound therapy, about color frequency and vibration therapy? Um, and to
it's
eat
all
an
about the money. It's
anti-inflammatory,
all about big
of
pharma and
course.
all that kind of stuff. It's all about the money.
And that's incredibly sad.
It is very sad. Speaking of that, my son is in the ER right now. So if you see me glancing down
Oh
at
my
my phone, I'm
goodness.
just I'm just checking it out. And he shouldn't be in the ER at all. He should be home and given over the counter. But this is something I have to deal with MS. I'm sure my ex mother in law is taking him there, but it's like he has a sore throat. There's no need for ER. Give him over counter meds, and if he's not better in the morning, get.
And that's the
See, and this is why we
thing.
have people that abuse ERs with these things, like these small,
But
small, like
it's actually more dangerous to him because, like, for myself, if I have if since my immune system, and the same with MS, um is heightened all the time, that's with anybody with an immune suppressant disease. Our normal immune system is working overtime all the time. So we don't typically get normal like colds and stuff, as much as other people. But when there's something like that, I'm putting myself more at risk by going to the ER and exposing myself to all these other sick people to get something potentially more dangerous than I would have been if I waited to be seen by, a normal doctor or whatever. So I try to stay out of those places because I don't, I don't want to get.
sorry, I'm messaging and he goes, "We're already here. We checked in." I said, "This he needs to go home." That's what I'm telling him. I guess see my ex husband's even there because he's messaging me back, so he shouldn't even be there. So I just I worked in the ER in urgent care. I worked at the hospital for 13 years. ER and urgent care the last 8 years, so half of the time, over a little over half of the time in the hospital setting, I worked in the ER and urgent care. So it's just like when you have these cold and flu like symptoms and
Mm,
stuff, don't go to the ER. If urgent
no.
care is closed, take your medicine over the counter, hold out until the morning until urgent care opens, or call your doctor. That's how we get really sick people come in, and we're waiting on beds.
Hmm.
So
Or
don't go to the
somebody,
ER.
that's sitting in the waiting room with, like, I've even been to, I was assaulted once and hit in the face um with a bottle in a parking lot one time,
Holy
and my
smokes.
my head was fractured. Like, I mean, thank goodness for the doctor that stitched it up there, but um I had 36 stitches. It fractured my skull. So, but and this ER was so busy because it was on like a Friday night, that I had to sit in the waiting room. I was passing out every 3 seconds probably when I first came in there, because I'm bleeding profusely from my head, and they told me to go have a seat and wait. There's a line, and I'm like, you're right. Like, you could see to the bone, to all, it was ridiculous. And they told me to go go wait, they've got people ahead of me. And I'm like, I'll just go back to butterfly bandages and super glue or something.
And there's people too that abuse the system, saying that they have chest pain really bad just to get back there faster, so
Yeah.
they don't have to be. And then when you get them back there, their story changes.
Mhm.
We've had that so many times in the ER. It was awful, awful. So,
And that's what, I get that when I was being kicked out of the hospital. I'm not I understand they probably see people like that all the time, but I'm like the last person to go to the doctor now, for well, even back then, unless it was really, really bad. Um,
mhm,
but at the same time, I don't show emotion through pain like most people. So
mhm,
if I'm e- even when I went into labor with my daughter and stuff and didn't have a car and they had to rush me to a different town in an ambulance, they're like, but you look fine. And the EMT there was taking my blood pressure and was like, oh my god, you are in labor. And I'm like, what am I supposed, and is it come down to like who makes the biggest scene, who's crying the most, or like how are we supposed to react?
it's really hard nowadays to tell if somebody's in true pain or not. I do have a high pain tolerance. I had to have a year actually this week. I had to have my appendix taken out, emergency surgery, and I kept thinking it was
Did you
indigestion,
say
and I'm like,
this week?
or this week it'll be a year, a year
Oh, I
ago.
was like,
Yeah.
"What is wrong with you, Emily? Why are you here?"
So I waited. The pain started at 6 o'clock in the morning. I kept thinking I was taking antacids, all that stuff, and it wasn't going away. It wasn't going away. And I finally, it was like I was bowed over though walking into the
Yeah.
ER. I'm surprised I even drove there. And I said, listen, I don't complain about pain. I wasn't in tears or anything. I just couldn't walk,
Mhm.
and I was telling him calmly as can be, I'm in pain and this is really bad and this has never happened and something's going on. And I think the woman, like there was people there. I think she could tell. My mom said when she got there, finally my face, my lips, and everything went pale numb. Well, I was able to take the mask off in my room, but she said I was pale all over. And they gave me, they actually went ahead, just gave me morphine right then, and they didn't ask me anything else. And within like 1 minute, 2 minutes, that pain was gone. I'm like, something is wrong. It was my appendix. And then when they went to remove it, it burst. So I was in the hospital for some time, and recovery was really hard. But and then but you have those other people, not that this is wrong by any means, that over dramatizes a lot, or they're hypochondriacs and they freak out.
Well, so I have multiple theories on this actually. Now that I've been through so many different situations and scenarios and worked with a lot of people on that. First of all, I mean, yeah, I try not to, because say if a carpenter gets a splinter, right? They've they've probably had hundreds of splinters in their career, so it's not that big of a deal. But if a child gets a splinter for the first time, a really bad one, they're going to think it's the end of the world, you know. Whether not necessarily even pain wise, just psychologically, when they see it. So their reaction is going to be different. Um, and the same with anything, I always think back to my kids and I were standing in line for the fair one time, and we're redheads, so we get nosebleeds all the time, have all of our lives. But there was this little boy in front of us that got a nosebleed. He was probably 6, 7 years old. It was really hot. It was in the summertime. So I didn't think anything of it. His mom started crying, freaking out, saying she was going to call 911. The boy that made the boy even worse, freaking out. And I get it, because when people have nosebleeds, yeah, there's for no, when you're just standing there doing nothing, um, it is kind of scary. And I get that, especially if it doesn't happen all the time
Mm-hmm.
to that person. But this was like, you could just see it spread down the line, the fear and the anxiety from it. The mom freaked out, so the boy freaked out even more, like and that was making his nosebleed worse. And it went down, like other people started free, and I was like, oh, like, here, just, hold your nose. I have some Kleenex. It'll stop in a minute. It's fine. My son's like, I have them all the time, and he was pretty young then too. I was like, so to us, we're like, what's the big deal? Like, it's a nosebleed, and it's happened throughout their lives. Like, it happened to my mom too. Um, Camp counselors and Boy Scout leaders, everything, have called me freaking out themselves. Your son's nose is bleeding. We can't get it stopped. I'm like, oh, he'll be fine, like 15 minutes. I mean,
Tilda's head back.
yeah. I'm like, if it goes past, a certain time, yeah, call me back. But otherwise, and I feel like they judge me at that moment. They're like, really? His mom doesn't even care that. I'm like,
Been
no,
there, done that. Been
it
there, done
happens all the
that
time.
50 million times.
But so
So
that's my theory on that. But hypochondriacs, after becoming highly, highly empathic, and this was after, and I think my last near-death experience, I thought back throughout history, what if empaths were, or what if hypochondriacs were actually just super sensitive, empathic people who picked up, because if I go to a cemetery for that matter, I have pain, or I can feel how, if that person was hit in the head when they died, if they fell downstairs, whatever, if they had stomach problems, or I get a pain in that area. So what if these hypochondriacs, and then they go to the doctor and nothing's, it looks on the surface like nothing's wrong. What if they're just feeling diseases and sickness and everything from other people, from people around them?
I don't know. I think we can speak a lot of things onto ourselves. Hold on one second. My son is calling me real
Oh
fast.
no.
I'm going to mute
Yes.
myself. All right.
Go ahead. But yes, I've had this thought, because if you're sensitive to everything, the energy around you, then it would be, say someone next to you has a broken whatever, um arm, leg, even if it's an animal or like an insect or something. If people absorb that energy and those feelings, because I know, many mediums do that. So if people are absorbing that type of energy, then why wouldn't we be able to do it with the living? You know what I mean? Like, why is that such a far-fetched thought? And I've learned so much more by communicating not only with deceased mental hospital patients, but the living as well. That there's been so many misunderstandings when it comes to mental health and these things, because if you think back at how far we've come now with a lot of these, what used to be considered um mental health issues, that are now it's normal to many people in society. um what what wound is that? I don't know. It just it I still just get Facebook user, whoever said interesting idea, and what what would, um but that's it's something that I've always wondered about, especially now, because for kids too, as a parent, when we have a child that's very sensitive, and that comes to us with saying something hurts, or something um is wrong, and then you take them to the doctor, and you take them to specialists, and you take them, and they don't find anything wrong. Well, maybe it's something they're picking up from their environment. What would you say is the difference between the empathic versus the mental you would look for? Um, typically, uh, I I I mean, scientifically, I don't know an answer to that because even after studying psychology, it's hard to put I don't like to put labels on things. And I think as a society that's what's happening to everything. And that's our problem is we always want to name everything. We always want to name problems. We want to label things and 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 I think that first that's a whole other rabbit hole because I've learned obviously when you name something you give more energy to it, but if you look throughout history to how much power names have over everything, I'm talking not just, well, how much power words have, not just names of people, names of places, names of diseases. Um so it spreads just like just like negativity does, just like a cold does, just like anything. It's the power you give to it, the energy you give to it. So when you start naming these things, you label a person as having this health disorder, or you label a person as having this disease or that disease or whatever. If I labeled everything I've ever had, I look at medical sheets now um if I'm at a doctor's office and when it asks you a list of things that you've had, and I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I could probably check like 90%, probably 95% of those things." But it's kind of a mind over matter thing. If you believe 100% that what a doctor says that something is going to kill you, then it probably will. It absolutely will because you believe it will. If as far as the empaths and hypochondriac, discussion we were having, think of children. Okay, when a child starts saying that they have something wrong physically with them, um and it's something pretty advanced, like that they shouldn't, well, nowadays it's see, that's different than other generations because we didn't have social media. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have everything under the sun planting in people's minds that they're all sick. Maybe there wouldn't be as many people sick if they didn't think they were sick, because I 100% believe that there's a lot of people that probably have diseases and illnesses they don't even realize they have, um and they cured themselves over and over from them because it's a mental thing. Like, if they knew they had those things, if they had gone to the doctor, and had, because they were scared and had numerous people tell them, then yes, it probably would have taken over their body. Absolutely. But everything has a vibrational frequency. Every single disease, bacteria, um, anything in healthcare that's been named has a vibrational frequency. Sometimes and energy and in thoughts um, can technically activate those illnesses or diseases or stresses or whatever. That has been 100% proven by science. Um, so I think we do more harm by. I'm not saying we shouldn't research things and all of that, but sometimes, like with when we had the shutdown, the world shutdown, who didn't get it that much and had very few deaths or cases or anything like that, was like small town America, because they didn't watch the news. They probably didn't even know there was a virus. Half of them didn't even wear masks for however long because they weren't afraid of getting it. When you get fear and that energy is infused into everything we do, then it's going to amplify it and make it spread faster. So I don't
Sorry
know.
about that, Trish.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay.
I hope your son's okay. You can go if you need to go. You don't.
I'm probably going to have to drive and go get him some over counter medicine for him to have at his dad's house. So I can probably stay on for maybe another 10 or 15 minutes and then go because
Yeah, that's
they're not
perfectly
okay.
fine.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
Fine. You're fine. Um, I was just discussing the power that um, fear
Mm-hmm.
in any illness. You know, I was saying if a doctor tells you you have a disease and you're going to die, then you probably will
Yeah,
because you believe it.
Don't Google anything either. Don't use
Right.
Google.
Right. And just like getting multiple opinions from doctors. One might tell you one thing, one might tell you another thing. One it depends on where they went to school, how they studied, if they even have knowledge of whatever it is you have, you know. So Joe Fox, God bless and good luck, Emily.
Oh, thank you,
Let's see.
Joe. Appreciate that. It's that time of year. It's coming on a little bit early. We've been having like 50 to 60-degree weather. Tomorrow's supposed to be 75 degrees in Kentucky. And
Yeah,
so like my sinuses have acted up some, but Jet can go really fast from having just a regular cold to pneumonia. Like, boom, he was a preemie.
yeah.
So I understand that maybe his dad wants to take, but no, I got his dad to leave the ER and they are on their way home. So, like, there's no need to be there. But his dad doesn't have any over counter medicine, so I'm going to go get it.
I yeah, I definitely and it's different with kids, you know. We um you never know because you never know when you like you said things can escalate so fast with especially with compromised immunity. Um
I'm just thankful Jet's 13 now and he can voice like what's really hurting him, or he can talk, and
yeah,
I can talk to him about his medicine because I can't, unfortunately, with MS. I can't. His dad told me the same story, I think 3 times on the phone, maybe 4 just a few minutes ago. So it's hard. Okay,
yeah.
okay, you've told me, and I keep telling him each time. I just try to say it not. I said, Dustin, you just told me this. Oh, I'm just telling you. And then like he says something else, and then he'll say the same sentence again, or
I
tell
do
you the
that
same
too.
story.
And it's we don't even realize we're because at
Mhm.
that point, like I could remember anything from maybe 10 years ago, you know, but when mine was that bad as far as the lesions and stuff, I couldn't remember 5 seconds ago, you know.
That's how
But
it's getting. It's getting kind of scary, and I don't want to go to through the court system or anything over this whatsoever. But it's a worry a lot, and I just want the best for everybody all the way around.
that's what started
So,
worrying me
mhm,
with my kids, you know, as a single mom. I would do I started like leaving the oven on. You know,
mhm,
I started we got locked out of the house numerous times. I would forget debit cards and car keys. I mean, like I would lay them down in the middle of a store, like things like not even,
mhm.
you know. So it got really scary there for a while. I've been doing a lot of research on cures for dementia and MS and other things that affect the brain and spine because you know because I have that, so I have that problem. So
I'm sure
um,
there's some natural remedies out there that can help,
that's what I
maybe
do.
even
I
cure.
do.
But
I absolutely believe that because now I don't take any medicine over the counter of any
wow,
kind ever. Um, and I drink herbal teas. I do a lot of things holistically, you know, the exercise, the red light therapy, things like that that keep it from um, getting to that level again.
hmm,
And I have many family members that have had MS too that have actually you know died from it and stuff. So it's and there's so much that because MS they don't like I said they correlate Lyme and MS as being the same thing, but um, there's still so much. It's like there's not that much research done on it. And again, I think this is due to big pharma. You know
they just keep the mill going with the doctor's appointments, the testing, the
yep
medicine. It's sad. It's so
yep
sad, and it's And then, it's also physically hard on the patient because they have to
Mhm.
continue to keep going to these things
Yep.
over and over. He gets IV treatments every 4 months, and that's like an 8-hour treatment. And,
Yeah.
he has to go two
I
hours
was
away.
taking my kids with me as a single mom to the hospital for a while there every day after work to get an IV or shots or whatever. I mean, I did this for at that point when I was at its worst, almost a year. I refused to be admitted to the hospital as a patient for 6 months like
Mhm.
they wanted to do. Because I was like, my kids don't have anyone. Like, who would raise me? What would happen? And that's the only reason I wasn't hospitalized for that long. But um, there's there's not they just don't know a lot about it, which is crazy to me that there hasn't been more research done, on things that could possibly help or cure it. So there were things that happened that that I had done in my life that actually there has been research done on certain things. Um, Rattlesnake venom, that was a new one I just learned yesterday, has been used for nerve therapy. Um, Bee venom, Gila monster saliva. Um, I don't recommend anyone getting any of those on your own.
Yeah, don't do it on your own,
don't,
please.
don't, and
These are
obviously
just opinions. We are not experts
yes,
here.
take the advice from a doctor. But I'm saying there has been research done on these off the wall things that I'm like, that's the last thing. I used to get stung by bees all the time. I used to get like, maybe they were helping me. Tattoos. Actually, it has been proven. There has been a study on this that tattoos boost your immune system. And I'm like,
Weird.
huh, wow. Because it's a
It,
gradual thing over time, So,
does it because like manipulates your skin, like that's where all the germs, everything comes in? The more tattoos, I wonder if the more tattoos you have, how sick are you? Like, we got these people that have full body tattoos. How often are they sick?
probably
That'd be
never.
interesting.
Because if you're brave enough to get a full body tattoo, then you're not afraid of anything. And so you're not going to get anything.
It, I mean, that's kind of interesting, though. I never thought of that about that.
Well, because okay, think
Huh.
about like when something um actually, it's funny. I just saw this thing on the History Channel about termites, and just that's how they're really small, but they take over their, whatever, whether it be another colony of bugs or even like a house by gradually poking holes in it. Okay, a few holes isn't going to do anything, but once you get hundreds, thousands, it could eventually take down that giant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with our immune systems, but tattoos were purposely doing that,
Hmm.
hundreds of little tiny pinprick or needle prick with the ink and stuff over and over and over. So mentally, actually, I have a book on that. I will have to send you, Emily, because and
Okay.
I'll have to post it because it's really interesting. This doctor and scientist had the same theory about people healing themselves. Like if you're hiking in the wild and you get a gash, that you're bleeding profusely, he said, have if there's somebody with you and you're far from medical, any type of medical care, have them perform that same action that hurt you. Say you got hit in the head, have them
Mm-hmm.
act like they're going to hit you in the head over and over and over, and then your brain and they actually did experimented with
It's
these when people
weird.
got hurt, and the wound started closing up itself and the person would stop bleeding. That's how powerful your mind is, because you become y- it's like you relive that certain event over and over and over, that it doesn't affect you anymore. You become immune to it. And I think that's the same with
Hmm.
disease and everything.
It could
um
be very, very much so. Also, I'm a big person with words. You speak things into existence. So if you're going to speak
Absolutely.
sickness, you're going to get sickness. If you're going to speak healing, you're going to speak healing, or you're going to receive healing. So, I've had my fair share of medical issues My 41. I'm 41 years old, but it's been a lot, especially the last year. But I kept, instead of getting beat down over, I just kept going. I'm going to, by this time tomorrow, I'll be okay. By this time, and I wouldn't even like give thought to anything else.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I always just said, by this time tomorrow, I'll be okay. By this time next week, I'll be okay. By this time next month, next year, I'll be okay. you know.
And that's
So.
what you have to do. And that's what I said too. I said even when I was talking to other people about it, I changed my vocabulary. Instead of saying I was sick or had a chronic illness, I started saying I'm healing from a
Yes.
chronic illness. I didn't define myself as that. And actually, it was a lot easier to do when I wasn't seeing 6 specialists a week, because everybody else was defining me as that. So, there's a lot too, the light therapy, the vibration is a big thing. And that's with anything. And that's, I have learned that most illnesses, um, or not illnesses, most what look, I'm not saying all of them, people don't write to me and be like, she said that. No, as far as mental illnesses, when we were talking about like hypochondriacs and stuff, or even now ADHD and autism and stuff in kids, most of those come down to a nutrition deficiency because of the food we eat.
Usually too, it's a vitamin D
Yeah.
deficiency in
Yep.
a lot of this stuff. What was it they said? They thought I had. They thought I had systemic. What is it called? Lupus.
Hmm.
And I went through, did all this testing. Then they said I had leukemia, did all this testing. But then nothing ever came out of it. And everybody said I was fine after a while. But the one thing that they kept worrying about the whole thing was I had a vitamin D deficiency. So I had to take vitamin D shots every week for a while, probably, I think, about 3 or 4 months. And then I ended up supplementing with vitamin D, and I do vitamin D3 and vitamin, is it D4? D3? There's the plant-based vitamin D. I take it.
Yeah.
That's the plant-based, not just from the sun, but the plant.
Vitamin D and B12 is usually, and iron too for people cause fatigue, cause almost all of the symptoms that are attributed to fibromyalgia and lupus and Lyme disease and MS and all Parkinson's even. Now, the like, yes, those. I'm saying those. If you let it get to the point where your body's, at a very very low level of that, um, then that's where it's kind of on a downward slope of you have to change so much beside then it is shutting down your other organs and nerve damage and things like that. But um as redheads, that's not like I'm born vitamin D deficient, so I've always
Mm-hmm.
had that as well. um but that's what I think with even with psychics and mediums and stuff, how much of that is actually our ailments or how much of that is from the spirit realms. Because it same theory with the holes, like if you keep getting attacked, not just by, well, maybe by spiritual attacks, then that's going to put holes in your aura, right? Which is your body's protector. Same thing with the world, as within so without. So our ozone, okay, a
Mm-hmm.
few holes can heal themselves, right? But if we have all of these different countries putting holes in it every day from the things we're doing, methane gas, whatever, it's too much. It can't repair itself. And, all these little fires lead to a big one. So, um,
I don't know. This world is. I never thought I'd live in a time like this. Never dreamt about it. Like, there's so much stuff going on with chemicals and what's at our farmlands, and then with the all of the. I did the huge big research last year with all the plants burning down. I have it on my website, and it's absolutely crazy. I just feel like America, personally, this is just my opinion, we are becoming like a third world country. with a lot of our like organic things that we depended on for a very, very long time to run, you know, this side of the world. And we're depending
Well,
on way more other people and other things
but
to
it's
import.
because we don't have a choice. Like I was telling you all with the Wi-Fi towers and things like that. Our air with the chemtrails is being poisoned. Our water's poisoned.
Hmm.
Our i- you know, even it doesn't matter how well you eat or how much sleep you get or how healthy you live, if the literal air you breathe is poison, you know what I mean, like, and the water you drink, um because there's not, you can't control that. um but I think again it comes down to, and the same with pandemics and people, these weather balloons, everybody's like, oh, are they going to spread some? Listen, people, that's what I was saying. If you, the second you have fear in these things, um, you open that door to literally allowing anything in, because whether it be an illness, an entity, whatever, because that's what gives it more power over your body. If you
Hmm.
think that those things are going to kill you, then yes, they probably will. um I
Stop
live in the
watching
ghetto.
mainstream media too. I don't
Yes.
have any news here at my house whatsoever. I watch something, obviously TikTok, but I research it out before I post it on any of my social media um, stuff. If I use any of those videos up in my stories or whatever, but as the news or anything like that, no, I don't have any of that here. Stopped watching the news. I think when Obama got his second term, um, I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was, and then you have baby boomers like my dad, love his heart. I still can't believe he sits and watches Fox News day in, day out. And to me alone, that's just depressing. But you still have the baby boomer generation
Yeah.
because they were raised on the TV, to trust the TV, to trust the news, and they still can't pull away from the TV.
Yeah.
In my mom is paying a big huge cable bill because my dad just wants to watch the news. She streams
Yep.
everything. My dad is 12 years older than my mom, I think 10 or 12 years older than my mom, so he's another generation. And she's like more tech savvy a little bit. She
Oh, mine
streams.
are
She's
like, they
Yeah,
still use flip phones up until
my dad's flip
a
phone.
week ago. um but they're the same way. It's like they're still back in the 80s or something, where they think they only have three channels.
Yeah,
And
that's my dad. That's exactly my dad. Exactly
like,
my
my dad
dad.
watches baseball, the news, and old John Wayne movies. Like, that's it.
He,
Like,
my dad watches the news, golf. He watched Sons of Anarchy when that was out. He loves that, and then he'll watch some preaching and stuff, some Christian channels here and there. But it's literally, I probably 95% of the time I walk into their house and that news is on every single time, and he has it sky
yeah.
high turned
And
up.
that's just programming your mind. Like, all of
Hmm.
those things are, plus I try to teach people to, my clients and stuff that I work with. It's not just, you can't just start eating right and expect your body to change right away. You can't just start exercising tomorrow,
Time.
although that's the first step, but you have to be consistent with it. And the same thing with being grounded, and making time for self-care is probably the biggest thing I've, in the last few years, because even kids, with the video
Hmm.
games and after the pandemic, and not getting outside as much, and not riding bikes, and not going to playgrounds because they were shut down. You can do those things at home, just, disconnect from all the digital stuff for a while, because um, I think, obviously that's what starts poking those initial holes
Hmm.
in our
It,
personalities. Are changing, everything. It's crazy.
It really does. And then I always say, I'm going to say end with this because I am going to go have to get him medicine. But the first 2 weeks of anything that you
Gross.
do is the hardest 2 weeks. Get through the first 2 weeks. You can get through
Yeah.
anything. Just stay consistent. That's with exercise. That's with eating new foods, cleansing yourself. I'm telling you, I'm starting it now. I started it Friday, back to running after a year of surgeries and all this crazy stuff. I haven't ran in a year. I'm like, oh, the startup is so hard. I was running like 20, 30 miles a week. I've done that most of my life. And the only other time I did not run was when I was pregnant with our son. And um, anyway, this past year has been really hard, but I started Friday and I'm doing it every other day. And I'm dreading the 2 weeks, but get through the first 2 weeks and you'll do fantastic. I promise. Promise. And don't ever
It
quit.
does so much for your mind too and your mental health. Exercise and just moving your body, because that's
helps with
it.
stress, your
Oh
stress
yeah.
levels. I love that runner's high too. Like, especially, I used to do it in the heat of the day too for lunch. I work from home. So my lunch hour, I would go out and run like 2, 3, 4 miles and then be back and then take a quick shower. But that runner's high, being out there really hot, I'm always like, why do you pick the middle of the day? Do it early morning. I'm not a morning person, but I just love that feeling. So hopefully I'll get back to that. And it also helped me with my work too. It was like a midday break.
Helps you focus more.
And I felt like I did a lot better in the afternoon into the evening than ever, like I do now. Like now I'm just like tired and all this stuff. You would think you'd be tired from running, but that's not the case with me.
Well,
And
plus it helps for people that are afraid of having another pandemic, things like that. You increase your cardiac output. You increase your lung capacity, everything. It's not just mentally and aside from being good for your organs, but all of those things prevent, even if you do, like I did get COVID, but it didn't spread to thank God, even with an immune suppressant disease. I didn't get the pneumonia like I normally would have. I didn't get, because I was religiously the last, 2 years probably, continually going to the gym and exercise, even if it was just walking, even if that's all I could do that day, I was still doing it, not just for mental, to keep um, that discipline going in my brain, but I think that absolutely helped with not catching every single thing that could have killed me, that came around. Um, and anyone can take one step. I don't care who you are. And I've seen people with no legs, you know. So I like,
they
everybody has an
do
excuse.
something a day that makes you feel good about yourself and stick with it for at least 2 weeks, and you watch and see that you'll take off from there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I keep telling every time. I'm like, because I ran Friday and I ran yesterday, Sunday, and I'm like, oh, 2 weeks, I'm done. It's like, get through the 2 weeks. But I am going to have to go, Trish. I'm going to have to go get my son
No
some
problem. I hope
medicine for his
he's
throat,
better
but he'll be
soon.
fine. He'll be fine. So I'm just glad he's not in the ER. So his dad listened to me. That's a miracle.
Well, and honey and echinacea tea. Honey has a lot of antimicrobial
I have
properties.
honey here, but he won't. He probably won't take that over there. He probably won't. Robitussin probably is what I'm going to end up getting him for a couple days or something like that. But yeah, I'm sure it's just allergies. But thank you for having me on your show, and I'll hopefully see you Friday. And way to go, Chiefs! Yay on the Super Bowl win. What was it? It's 50 years since they won. When was the last time they won?
What? No, they've gone the last no, they've been on a streak here.
Hold
So
on. I'm not thinking of Chiefs. I was thinking of something else.
I was like, Chiefs.
Sorry, I was thinking of something else.
Now, their coach, Andy Reid, the Chiefs coach, formerly coached the Eagles from 1999 through 2017, I believe. Don't quote me on that.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, they won in 2020. I should have known that. Maybe that was. Yeah, I should have known that 2020 and then 2023. Yeah, the last one before that was 1970. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Yep. And the Chiefs played in the first Super Bowl ever against the Green Bay Packers. back in what, like 1952?
It says
I
franchise
don't know
won
when the
3
first
league
one was.
championships, 1962, 66, and 69. Super Bowls were 1970, 2020, and 2023. Well, if I was going to lose my guessing game, I was going to be proud to lose against the Eagles since they're over here close to me, and we got like 7 people
Yeah,
on here.
a lot of our other hosts are, I don't want to say all of them, but a lot of them are from Pennsylvania. So,
Well, Trish, I just want to say thank you so much, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And I'll probably see you Friday
well,
on.
tell everyone when your show is.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. What the Frick Live? We're on the same network here, Friday nights at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, at 7 p.m. Eastern. And this Friday, hopefully, if I have water, Carl Johnson, that worked with the Conjuring and all that stuff. He's a demonologist. He's going to be on our show this Friday. So we'll be talking demons
Ooh,
and ghosts. So,
that's
and the Conjuring
exciting.
House. So, anyway, I'll see you all Friday, and hopefully see you Friday, Trish. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you
Thank
later.
you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, thank you all for your patience and understanding in our man, that's tough though. There's so many things going around this well at this time of year, but I just love Emily. She's hilarious. If you ever tune in to her and Joe on Fridays as well. Um, they go round and round about different issues, and it's just hilarious. Like I said, I'm I'm usually the one that's just like I sit back and when I do have pop into that show occasionally. Um, oh, I couldn't see the chat for a second there. Yes, I do see your chats now. Most of them. Some of them still say Facebook user, but um, for the most part, if you've given it that permission, then I see your name. Um, oh, so what you all were talking or waiting for, I guess. Another important thing this week is February 15th is National Singles Awareness Day, which I will be celebrating. For those of you that, I really feel like we should just have like, I don't know, another Halloween in February or something because I don't really do the Valentine's Day thing, um but I did I'm gonna do an instructional video on I don't know what day I'm going to do it on. I will post that. I'm going to do it live on my channel, on my other channel, which I'm launching, my entire website. You see the website over there below my name. And that's actually not connected to it yet because I haven't launched my website. But I figured since this is going to future archives forever, um, then I will put it there because um, that's going to connect all of my businesses, all of my art, all of my photography, blogs, everything. The Te Amo Trish website, which had or YouTube channel, which will have all of the health videos like nutrition, fitness, art, everything that I do in my life basically will be on that channel. And so I am going to be doing an instructional because I promised and people requested it after my little Batman spiel last week. Um, I am going to do an instructional video. This isn't 100% complete. I don't even know if you can see it on here, but I will post it on. It's very beginner friendly. Like this is a mixed medium um Batman scene from this isn't from Batman Begins. It is actually from Batman Forever. When Seal played or when Seal had the theme song for that one of Kissed by a Rose on the Grave. And so I'm going to be doing that probably this week. It will be live. I will post it on um my Facebook page on the missing piece. I'll just link it on the missing piece Facebook page as well. And I'm gonna start doing that on my themed little cryptid things. This one's actually I want to do this for Valentine's Day, and I purposely did that theme. Like it's got leather and lace to symbolize for bats, death and rebirth, transformation. So kind of the tough skin, like we are talking about, you got to have tough skin in life. The leather, but then the lace, as bats' wings are very delicate, actually, even though um, they're incredible creatures. They creatures of the night. And interestingly enough, when I was reading on the National Parks and Recreation Services website yesterday, they were talking about preservation services in your national parks. And they said that the first thing to restore an environment, a biosphere basically, they is to start with the creatures of the night, because everything in the dark obviously helps everything in the light. Um, and I always say that, it's everything in nature works that way. So, but if you want to see how I made this and would like to follow along, then I will have that um, this week. And art is a passion of mine. It's actually healed me time and time again, because colors have frequencies, as we've talked about before, um, and vibrations and things like that. And my art's always incredibly it it's always intuitive into the future. So, most psychics and mediums and such do readings or work with tarot, things like that. I'm a historical medium, so I typically, I mean, I have done like cold case type missing persons, but now for the most part, I love the historical aspects. So, um, a lot of my art will reflect something that's like a piece of a puzzle that I'm looking for, comes out in my artwork of the past or the future. So it's always interesting. But I want to do, I've done so many paintings and pictures and stuff of even like Bigfoot, my depiction of that, Bigfoot and um UFOs, all kinds of stuff, different things. So I'm gonna start sharing that, as well as having like instructional videos. And I do woodworking, I do all kinds of things. So I think it's important to keep all of those, keep handmade crafts and art and everything human handmade, human hand. Isn't it sad that we have to say that? Human handmade crafts and woodworking and whatever you do. I want to learn how to work. What's the word for it? Not. I was going to say metal smithing. It might be. Um, I want to learn more how to work with metal, because that's another element. And I do incorporate a lot of metal in other forms, with wood and stuff. So, but that's something that AI can never do. I don't care where you come from. A robot or a machine can never infuse the human energy into art or craftsmanship, things like that, because that's what's very unique about our planet. And I think it's important to keep that alive. So, and it's incredibly healing too. It's very relaxing. Even if I've been on this. Emily was talking about do something for 2 weeks, because I had gotten away from it for so long, and I've started making a point to do art journaling, um, at least every single day. Do something small every single day. And so I started, some days that I'm really tired or whatever, don't feel up to it. I just doodle, like I'll do little doodles or something. I'll fill a page with that, or I'll fill a page with watercolor. That doesn't take as much time as like some big elaborate thing. And it is, I think it helps my it for mental your mood, everything, especially in winter months when you can't get outdoors as much. Um, but I incorporate all of that into my art. I'm going to start doing on my other channel. Also, I'm going to start doing live. I take my kids to a lot of we go on a lot of adventures. It, and we incorporate everything in those adventures. So like if I get a message from a spirit at some cemetery in another town, then I'm going to look up in that town the different historical sites, or like what archaeologists are doing in that town, or botanical gardens or things, because then especially with my daughter and my son's a teenager, he's not interested in foraging anything anymore. But I use a lot of, when I find acorns, certain leaves, we'll learn about that leaf, we'll learn what it does, what tree it comes from, what plant it comes from, how it benefits nature. We'll learn all about that one thing that we find. Um, and then we'll create art with it, or we'll do something with that. Like the little acorn shells, things like that. I advise you don't ever, like when I make art or macrame or wall hangings or whatever out of sticks or wood or something, I don't tear it off a tree. Okay, people, do not abuse nature in that way. I'm talking about things that are already on the ground, and I don't take more than I need or can use, because you'll probably get karma for that or something. The forest elementals might come after you for that. So obviously be respectful. We always take, I try to almost 100% of the time take um, a trash bag, because of course in all of our national parks and forests and everything there's always litter from people. um, so I try to help in that manner. But it's once you start doing that, you start looking, it causes us to be present for one, which most people aren't. But it also helps with um it forces you to pay attention to the little things, to find things that you wouldn't normally see, because when you look closer, look at the bigger picture of things, there's there's entire biospheres of living things all around us all the time that people just don't notice. There's entire colonies of ants and birds and flowers and everything that we walk all over every single day of our lives. So I encourage you, even do like, and I'll probably post those, because I do them. These are things I do in my own life um all the time. I'll make up like a little scavenger hunt for my daughter and I on our walk for the day, or hike or something. And not only does it get us involved and more connected with family, but it makes it more fun to do those things, like trying to keep up with walking or running or exercising every day, or getting out every day, or doing something together. It makes it more fun, it makes it a challenge. If I make a list of things, like a scavenger hunt for us to go find that day, then my daughter's excited to do it, sometimes even my son. And it's hard to get teenagers to do anything these days. So um that's one thing I am going to do in the future, along with my book and movie club. And I'm going to start doing that again. I used to with my other channel a long time ago, where I would have live, you can do live movie reviews on Amazon. So for some guests that I have coming on, or that I have in the past, that are actors in different movies or documentaries or whatever, you can have a live Amazon movie review. You schedule the time and everything. Everybody comes and watches it. And it's free, unless, as long as you have, like an Amazon account. And you can join in the chat and everything along with the movie. So I think that's really cool on some of these sci-fi movies that are really close to reality. I thought that would be something fun to do in the future. And that's it. That's all I've been doing. I'm not, since I'm in the middle of moving, obviously I know it's taken away from me being able to have as many guests and stuff this month, because I can't devote as much time in reading their books or researching them. But we will be back to normal, well, hopefully. And depending on the nature of the state of the world at that time. We're it's coming upon St. Patrick's Day's next month, right? So um, there's a lot to look forward to, though. So um, I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Um, I want to, if you do, like my channel, subscribe, anything like that. Leave a comment of what you want to see in the future. Leave a comment about what you don't want to see in the future. All of those things encourage us to keep doing it, because even though my channel has grown so much over the last year since I've done it, it's been a year and like a few weeks now. Um, I don't get feedback from you all, so it's hard for us to keep doing something that if people don't appreciate it or the energy we put into it anyways. Um, so leave a comment or send me an email, things like that. Also, I forgot about this. I found this at a random, like, a yard sale recently. I haven't read it, but I'm going to put it on my list. I just thought it was funny. And, I'm usually intuitively led to different books and art and things like that. And this one is Maximum Boy, starring in Invasion from the Planet of the Cows by Dan Greenberg. So I'm going, and this again will probably be my next themed painting, because now I have another idea for this. But I want to read this. And these are easy books you can read. I mean, I'm telling you, people usually. Okay. Okay. I just flipped to a page. Here's how my intuition works. And I usually find these things in, like, the most off the wall children's books or something. The first page, why this sounds like an interesting read. Big words, short book. It'd probably take me, I don't know, like 30 minutes to read this or something. But so it's a small chunk of your time. Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to tell you all this first of all. The first page I flipped to, right? I haven't read this. I just got it the other day from this yard sale. Random. But the first page I flipped to, my job at the Pentagon is very important, said the strange voice under the desk. Um, that's one of the first lines. And so aside from that, when I flip to the back, this is crazy. The first book in this series, this is apparently the last book in the series, is number 4. The first book in this series is called The Hijacking of Manhattan. Okay, stop it. Those of you that know me know that that's very relevant. The second one is The Day Everything Tasted Like Broccoli. The third one, Superhero or Super Thief. And the fourth one, Invasion from the Planet of the Cows. So now I see why books like this are banned from our libraries now. Yep. Anyways, this one, the little inscription on the back, the detail is, it says, look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a UFO filled with cows from outer space. The president has sent Maximum Boy on another mission. This time it's against pitchfork carrying alien cows. That's terrifying. But since we're talking about mad cow disease, maybe Maximum Boy doesn't know why they have landed on Earth or why they take the words got milk so seriously. But he does know one thing: these cosmic cows do not come in peace. So I will post that on my book club on my Tayoma page as well. Um, and you can purchase, my art. I also have, it's got to be connected. Again, I have to connect all these things. To my Shopify store, which has print on demand graphics and designs that I've created that have to do with the paranormal. you can purchase those things. Um, or I also have an Etsy shop. So I never tell any of my listeners any of this. So I guess if you don't know it exists, then it doesn't in your world. Um, anyways, that is all for tonight. Have a great week. Thank you for tuning in, and catch Emily on Friday. I hope her son is okay. Um, and then her show is on Friday, and then she's also on News on the Flip Side on Friday. So, which is a lot of fun. So, um, I'll have the other links posted for now. Have a good evening.